So, what happens when the clock runs out on a judge? We're about to dive into this incredible legal case where a 90-day deadline could literally be the difference between a conviction and an accused person just walking free.
I mean, really think about it. The trial is over, all the evidence is in, and you're just waiting. But days turn into weeks, and weeks drag into months. Is there a time limit? And if a judge misses it, what's the penalty? Does the whole case just get thrown out?
Well, this isn't just a what-if scenario. Let me introduce you to Bernardino Marcelino. Back in 1975, he was on trial for a very serious crime, rape. After all the arguments were done, the case landed on the judge's desk, and that's when a very, very important clock started ticking.
90 days. That's the magic number. See, under the Philippine Constitution at the time, once a case was submitted, a judge had exactly 90 days to make a decision. 3 months. That's it. It's a rule designed to keep the wheels of justice moving and prevent cases from getting lost in limbo forever.
Now, Marcelino's lawyer seized on this. He made a really bold argument. He said, look, this 90-day rule is absolute. If that judge misses the deadline by even 1 day, the court loses its legal power, its jurisdiction over the entire case. And if the court has no power, it can't sentence anyone. So Marcelino should be set free. Simple as that.
That's a heck of an argument, right? If that rule is a hard stop, then missing it has to mean something huge. So, the first and most obvious question we have to ask is, was the judge actually late? Let's break down the timeline and see what happened.
Okay, so check this out. September 4th, the case is officially submitted. That's day 1, the clock starts. Then, on November 28th, the judge, a guy named Fernando Cruz Jr., signs his decision and files it with the clerk of court. It wasn't until sometime in December that the court started sending out notices to actually announce the verdict.
So, if you count the days from September 4th to November 28th, you get 85 days. The judge was inside the 90-day window. He made it with 5 whole days to spare. So what was all the fuss about? Why was this even a case? Well, this is where we get into a really critical legal detail.
It all boils down to the difference between 2 words, rendition and promulgation. Rendition is the moment the judge signs the decision and officially files it with the court clerk. That's the decision-making part. Promulgation is the big public announcement to everyone involved. And here's the key. The 90-day rule applies to rendition, so the clock stopped the second Judge Cruz filed that paperwork.
So, case closed, right? The judge was on time. But the Supreme Court, thankfully, didn't just stop there. They decided to tackle the much bigger, more important question that Marcelino's case brought up. What if the judge had been late? What if he filed on day 91? Would the court really just lose all its power?
And this is where the case goes from being just about one man's trial to a landmark decision about how the law itself works. Is that 90-day rule a solid steel wall that can't be broken, or is it more like a really, really strong suggestion? To figure that out, you need to know about 2 different types of legal rules. First up, you have mandatory rules. Just think of an expiration date on food. The moment you go past that date, it's done. It's no good. It's a hard stop. If a rule is mandatory and you don't follow it perfectly, whatever you did is legally invalid. It's void.
But then you have directory rules. These are more like a best by date. Yeah, you're supposed to follow it, and it's better if you do, but if you go past it, the product isn't suddenly poison. It's still valid. Breaking the rule doesn't automatically cancel everything out, though there might be other consequences for missing the guideline. So which one was it? The Supreme Court came to a huge conclusion. The 90-day rule is directory, not mandatory. This was a massive decision. It means that even if a judge files a decision on day 91 or day 100, that decision is still perfectly valid. The court does not lose its power. But why?
Well, the court's reasoning was basically just common sense. Making the rule mandatory would lead to complete chaos. Can you imagine courts, the very places meant to provide answers, just suddenly losing their power because of a missed deadline? It would mean guilty people could walk free just because of a paperwork delay. The whole point of the rule was to speed things up, not to create a get-out-of-jail-free card.
But this doesn't mean judges can just ignore the deadline. No way. Instead, the system splits the problem in 2. First, the court keeps its power, and the late decision is still valid, so the case can actually conclude. But second, the judge who caused the delay, they can face administrative action, fines, suspensions, you name it. It's a pretty smart balance when you think about it. The main goal, which is delivering justice, isn't derailed by a simple procedural hiccup. But the system still demands efficiency, so the judge is personally held accountable for the delay. You punish the person who was slow, not the entire case. So how did all this end for our guy Marcelino?
Okay, so let's get back to Bernardino Marcelino. Based on this big ruling, his petition was, of course, dismissed. The Supreme Court gave the green light for the lower court to finally announce the verdict that Judge Cruz had written and filed all those months ago.
But here is the final, unbelievable, tragic twist in this whole story. In the time it took for this legal battle to go all the way up to the Supreme Court and back down again, Judge Fernando Cruz Jr., the man who actually wrote the decision, had died. And that one fact triggered a completely different but equally important rule of law. See, a judgment is only valid if it's announced, promulgated, while the judge who signed it is still holding that office. A judge's power ends when they leave the bench, whether they retire, resign, or, in this case, pass away.
So after all that, after the whole fight over the 90-day rule, after figuring out the judge was on time anyway, and after the Supreme Court explained exactly how the rules should work, the decision Judge Cruz wrote could never be read. It was legally invalid. The entire case had to be handed over to a brand new judge who had to start from scratch, review all the evidence again, and come to a completely new decision.
This case is just this perfect storm of legal principles, isn't it? A rule designed to create speed and efficiency, in the end, actually led to an even bigger delay, all because of the one thing the law can't control, life and death. It really leaves you with this massive question: how do we build a system of justice that's both fast and fair, that's both by-the-book efficient and still, at its core, human?